You will never need to use a damage meter, boss mod, weak aura, or nameplate add-on ever again, if Blizzard gets this right. But it does seem they very much want to. Their rebellion against combat add-ons is almost here, because in Midnight, we're getting a complete combat UI overhaul. This is humongous news that was buried. It's not yet in any real press, any big Blizzard communications or highlights. It's all at the end of Ian's systems panel at Gamescom, and it's going to have a foundational change to World of Warcraft, so let me get you up to speed with what's changing.
I've got big news for the thousands of you who have joined me on today's sponsor, boot.dev, and that news is TypeScript. The entire backend learning path is now playable in TypeScript as well as Go. That's kind of huge. And it's funny, Lane's tweet is basically, fine, you win, we've capitulated to the ways of soy because enums. If you're wondering what an enum is and why you should want one, well, this is a good way to find out. And as for why you should care, well, TypeScript is Microsoft's, to put it simply, super-powered version of JavaScript. Static types, fearless refactors, editor auto-completion, a lot of things that make companies like Google, Slack, and Airbnb trusted in production. It's a really powerful skill. To put a long technical story short, it lets you catch bugs while you're coding instead of whenever the server blows up and kills everyone. So, what boot.dev does is it wraps all that good stuff in an RPG with quests, XP, boss fights, real-time leaderboards, and community. You get to enjoy all of that while you're wiring up databases, building REST APIs, deploying all your stuff to the cloud, and now being able to do that with TypeScript. And by the time you finish the path, you'll have a portfolio that is full of back-end projects, and you'll have the confidence to go in and dual-wield TypeScript and Go on any gig. That's going to look awesome to an employer. And here's the best way to save money. Go to boot.dev/Bellular. Use code Bellular for 25% off. And because 25% of a bigger number is a bigger number, if you do that with the yearly plan, you'll get the biggest saving. And don't worry, because if you don't gel with it, there's a zero-risk 30-day money-back guarantee.
Midnight's pre-patch is due early next year, and currently we think Blizzard are targeting February. Now, you'll notice the store page says before June 30th. I'm fairly sure, though, that is Blizzard leaving space for a delay if they need one, and sometimes we get those weird, before a certain date announcements because essentially of legal requirements and things like that. Now, all of the marketing says coming 2026, and across interviews and panels, Ian says early 2026. Which is a fairly big difference, and we actually know the alpha is coming out in just a few weeks. So, basically, this stuff will be coming real soon. And in the pre-patch, World of Warcraft is adding 3 new major UI systems, and they're updating a 4th. The most important of these changes is the nameplate update, and this might save Mythic Plus for some players. Now, sadly, Blizzard didn't show us any footage of this in action, but that's fine because this picture paints 1,000 words. First, how they look. Basically, like the UI update for Dragonflight, they're opting for something that's a little bit more modern, a bit more blocky, a bit more flat. Thankfully, it's still recognizably WoW, and I'd say it looks fairly readable at a glance, which ultimately is its purpose. Now let's take a look at the layout. If you use an add-on called Plater, you'll recognize this immediately. The stuff that you need is separated out a little. On top is your debuff, so you can see what you still need to hit them with. The left is mob buffs to be careful of or to dispel. The right is any crowd control that they've taken from other sources, which means you'll clearly see if someone has already stunned that mob. Which really is a perfect start. Looks really good. And looking below to the cast bar example, there is something huge where we have 2 entirely different cast bars. This is an example from an existing dungeon, which is the Necrotic Wake, so we know what they're doing. Now, the smaller one on the bottom is Necrotic Bolt, and it is just a targeted spell that hits for a chunk of damage, and you'll generally want to stop that from happening, but if it happens, it's no big deal. Healer problem, whatever. But what's cool is the bigger cast bar above is for Rasping Scream. It's an AoE fear and absolutely is a spell that you will want to interrupt. So by having these different bar sizes, well, the information is clearly communicated. And in the talk, Ian actually called that part out specifically. He said that you should not need an add-on to tell you if a cast is going to wipe you or not, that the game basically is going to show you that information going forward. And right now, it's add-ons like Plater with, manual configs that are left to do that in the game. What happens is players go to the public test realm and they start doing dungeons. When they do, they learn what abilities are important and they flag them. That will then mean that Plater, whenever you get it and you're playing the game normally, that it'll have configs to handle all that stuff for you. And that's why when you're using an add-on like that, you'll see certain casts are usually a different color or a different effect. And when that is the experience you can have with an add-on, playing the game raw really does kind of suck, because you've either got to learn it by dying to it or learn ahead of time, or just read the name really, really quickly and guess. The game's just not good at presenting its hierarchy of information to you. And you'll also have to look at every spell being cast in a huge group of mobs. Whereas now, with a system like this, it sounds like when designers are putting those abilities into the game, they'll be able to flag them, and then the game itself will know what's dangerous and show it to you. Now, we don't see many specifics on customization, sadly. It looks like there's a lot of on/off ticks for what you do or don't want to see, and I wish there was maybe more for like styling it or something like that. I'd love to see something maybe a little bit more like this, not just the sort of big blocky thing. But still, it's a good start, though unfortunately there are two very notable things that are missing. The first is the execute marker. It's pretty simple. Plater will show a line in health bars, which will show you when your execution window opens. It even adjusts this to talents. So Shadow Priest, for example, can use Shadow or Death at 20%, but with a talent, they can use it at 35%, and Plater will always put that mark at the right spot for you. That might be, I'd say, a little too far for what Blizzard would be putting into the game by default, but obviously this is an early preview and we've not even played it in alpha. Now, the other major feature is spell names. In Plater, you can change spell names to display what they do. And I think the best example is Frontals. You might not know exactly what Flamethrower does in Floodgate, but if you've got Plater installed and you've got, good config, well, it will change that to say Frontal, which is less flavorsome than saying Flamethrower, but at least it will tell you to get out of the way. But to be fair, Blizzard's actual spell visuals do that way better than they used to, so I don't think it's a massive problem. And from a design point of view, I think it's important that we stick to playing in the game world instead of just playing the UI, which is one of the traps that WoW has fell into just far too often. And I'll be real with you, if this was a few years ago, I wouldn't really trust Blizzard to get that right, but after playing this patch's dungeon and raid, I'm confident that just their spell telegraphing, their visual language is strong enough that we don't need as many of those UI features that just go and play the game for you. So if you're tired of hearing "run away, little girl, run away" from your UI, you're not alone. I'm tired of that too, and it's where I've got good news. DBM and bigwigs are being replaced. I gotta be real, Blizzard have outdone themselves here. Though, if you ask me, they may have went a little bit too far. Now again, all that we've got is this screenshot. Blizzard calls them boss alerts. And for our working example, this is Hackclaw's Warband from Brackenhide Hollow. So again, we know what's going on contextually here. On the right-hand side, we can see there is a bit of a surprise though, because Blizzard did not copy DBM and bigwigs, which are very much using like lots of bars scattered across your screen. Instead, they are copying the insanely popular weak aura called Raidability Timeline, which is one that I absolutely love. And that's actually one of my biggest worries about this gone, because when they talked about removing add-on hooks for combat stuff, I was worried we'd lose that weak aura, but it seems Blizzard have recreated it. It seems they've realized that the timeline really does appear to be the ideal way to represent this information. And, well, it does look even better than the weak aura version. It's quite gorgeous, actually. Now, this means you'll get to see upcoming abilities exactly when they're on their way in. If you're a seasoned raider, that's actually better news than you may even realize, because one long-standing issue with boss mods is getting the timings right, and sometimes the add-ons just, well, quite simply get the timings wrong. And there are times where it's not their fault, because they just literally can't read game data directly. Obviously, Blizzard's solution can read game data directly. So if they build it properly, then the timers we get from this should be correct, even if a fight bugs out or has its timings thrown off. So in this case, it's not just a replacement, it does actually seem like it could be an improvement. Though I do hope they have an option for bars, just because that's how most people have played the game over the last 20 years, and change is hard. Better to meet people where they're at. But boss mods are more than just a timeline, obviously. One of the most important things boss mods have done for years upon years is assignments. And we see here that Marked for Butchery is targeting the player here, which is the shaman. They will have a star over their head. And that actually says to me that this alert system will also handle that. Now, we need to see something like, say, Soulbinder's lines to be sure it can handle multiplayer marks and assignments as well. But still, pretty cool. I didn't really think we would get this with the official Blizzard thing. And having players marked with specific icons so that you can organize where people will go is extremely important and extremely useful. But I can't have this just be a pure glazing session, because there is one concern I've got, which I'm going to call handholding. At the top, you can see the DBM style text alerts telling you what's happening and what to do about it. Things like dodge the savage charge and move away from the blade storm. So if you're fighting this boss for the first time, you'll know exactly what to do and when to do it. Now, maybe you'll disagree with me here, and it's totally okay if you do, but I do worry that could take too much thinking out of the player's hands. I mean, Bladestorm has already got a circle showing you a radius, and it's called Bladestorm. And in World of Warcraft these days, charges have big red arrows. I feel like the big red arrow kind of does all it needs to, and we don't need the textual handholding. Maybe it's necessary, I don't know. Obviously, we'll see when it's on alpha. But with that said, it's time to move on to DPS meters. The last new thing Ian showed on stage was this, the official Blizzard damage meter. I never thought we would see this, but here we are. And it looks like they're matching the UI style more or less perfectly. Ian even says they're going to be server authoritative. That's big, because right now DPS meters have some issues. They read your combat log, so if someone is out of range or there's maybe a sharding issue, they can actually desync, whereas these will show you the 100% real damage that people are actually doing, per Blizzard servers. And that is huge. I think this looks great, except there is probably one little bit where this could be a downgrade. Actually, for some people, it could be the biggest downgrade. You see, details is an insanely good add-on. The levels of customization in details are off the goddamn charts. I mean, you can see graphs of damage after dungeons. That's wild. You can look at basically any metric imaginable, from interrupts to CCs to healthstone usage, and just have all the info you need. And most importantly, you can give players nicknames. That way Liquid can change all their names to game and win the race to world first. But seriously though, I feel like this is where there could be disappointment for some players. Not everybody needs all of that extra stuff, but the extra stuff can be helpful. And here's an example of that. It can be important to see things like who in your raid was hitting the ads, or perhaps what damage killed players. And I can't see Blizzard's version letting me go back and see a pull from last week. And I'll give you an important example here. On our heroic progression, we killed Soulbinder thanks to details. That might seem a bit weird, but Matt on our team was able to look at the damage that we all took broken down by spell. He then saw that Void Burst, which is the spell that the mages cast, was doing substantially more damage than the abilities of the other adds. And that meant that we went and targeted the mages first. Now you might be wondering, why didn't you just read a guide? It's pretty simple. We don't do that because to us it's less fun. Anyway, by being able to do some detective work here, we just went and got our first kill, and it felt pretty good. Now obviously, we could have checked Warcraft logs, but doing this in the game UI between pulls is pretty convenient. So, at least in replacing details, there are massive boots for Blizzard to fill. But I don't want to be a doomer here. This is just one screenshot. We'll have to see what it looks like in alpha, and big picture, I'm kind of impressed. But what if I told you that's actually not all? You see, Ian ended his talk by saying this, and I quote, "Just a few of these are interface improvements coming in Midnight. There are going to be many more at launch and to follow. This is a project that has a long future ahead of it." and that's damn exciting. Now, we've already got the cooldown manager's first form, which basically started to replace class weak ores, and we've also got its next form already confirmed for Midnight. That's the version that's bringing debuff support, as well as audio alerts for cooldowns. So maybe a lot of the issues or, foibles that could be here in our heads are just things that Blizzard haven't got around to showing us yet. And, we all sort of laughed whenever Ian said that they were going to try replacing combat add-ons, because I think we just didn't really believe Blizzard would do it. There's so many of them and they're so custom. But looking at this, and after hearing Ian speak in that panel, I think I might just be a believer. Obviously, once we have our hands on with these things in alpha, we'll let you know how things go. But in the meantime, what you can do is you can check out how they have secretly, quietly confirmed huge class reworks that are coming in Midnight.